Today, we're going to talk about due diligence walkthrough inspection protocols for the buyer and the seller. Man, as a broker, I've walked thousands of units with buyers and sellers, and I got plenty of crazy stories. In this video, we're going to talk about the do's and the don'ts that could cost you a lot of pain. Stick around. Let's go! All right, we're going to jump right into this. I'm going to break it down into two parts. One for when the tenant is home and how you should conduct yourself. And the second part will be when the tenant is not home. Though I got to tell you, there's a lot of crossover. The first thing buyer and seller has to be on the same page with is the storyline under which you're doing the inspections. As the buyer, you'll need to find out from the seller whether or not the tenants have been notified the property's for sale, or if staff members that are on site have been notified. Most of the time, the on-site staff knows the property is being sold, and most of the time, the tenants do not. Assuming the tenants do not know, what is the story? Were they told that you're just doing insurance inspections? Are you doing a capital expenditure walkthrough so the seller knows what they need to work on? Or is it the annual walkthrough of the lender? Tenants rarely ever ask what the inspection is all about. They're just used to inspections anyway. But you should still all be on the same page, including all the vendors the buyer is bringing in. Property managers, contractors, phase one consultants, and so on. For buyers, when you arrive, do not wear any clothes that reveal who your company is. Tenants could easily look up your logo to see that you're a multifamily investment company. The same goes for the buyer's property manager and contractor and other inspectors showing up. The tenants could look up the logos and see that these are third-party property managers not associated with the property, and will start assuming that that's the new buyer's manager. And along those same lines, try not to drive a vehicle that has your logos all over it. Anything like that can trigger a tenant to start thinking of things that don't exist. Also, regarding what you're wearing, if the storyline is that you're doing an insurance inspection, don't show up in a $1,500 three-piece suit that says Armani on it. Likewise, buyer and sellers, try not to show up in your gym shorts and shirt because you just came from the gym. Now, depending on who's escorting the buyers along, whether it's the broker, the seller's property manager, the seller's leasing agents, the seller's maintenance people, the sellers themselves, if you're the buyer, allow them to do the knocking of the doors and the introductions. Now, we're in 2021, so the COVID-19 pandemic is still around. Keep your mask at least in your pocket, just in case the tenant themselves want you to be masked before walking through their unit. And as the buyer, make sure all of your vendors know to bring masks with them in case they need to put them on. Once the tenant has answered the door, thank them for letting you inconvenience them and remind them that you'll be in and out real quick. As the buyer or one of the buyer's vendors, if you intend to take some pictures, at least ask the tenant ahead of time if it's okay to do so. If the tenant is a little bit hesitant on the picture thing, just let them know you're not taking a picture of anything personal. You're just paying attention to mechanical, electrical, plumbing, types of fixtures, cabinetry, and that those pictures are internal to you only and go nowhere else. As you're walking through the unit, if there are any bedroom or bathroom doors closed, just ask the tenant if it's okay to walk through and that no one's in there. That way you don't come across any surprises, and I've had a few. All right, here's another good one. As the buyer, whatever system you're using, whether it's a paper checklist, an iPad, an online software program, in order to do the inspections on the units, learn that dang program before you come to the property. It is extremely painful if you are inefficient with whatever system you're using on everyone else who's there, as you're fumbling around to find the check mark and to figure out how to do the pictures and how to cross off different things on your list. I would even strongly suggest several days before the inspection, breaking out whatever tool you're going to use in that respect and making sure it's got power, that all the checklist works, that the picture taking ability works, and that you can process things fast and efficiently. And for the love of God, as you're walking through units, do not point out loud in front of the tenant things that need to be repaired or have replacements done on. When things like that come up, and they will, wait until you're fully outside the unit and completely out of earshot from the tenant to address that with the broker or seller representatives. I can't tell you how many times buyers will blab their mouth or bring up something about something that needs to be repaired in the unit. The tenant hears it, and then after all the inspections are done, the phone starts lighting up on the on-site property manager about needing this replaced, and that needs to be repaired, and the roof has to come off, and the air conditioner has to be done, and the plumbing's leaking, and oh my God, I need a rent reduction. Another one, buyers, when you're in the unit, do not roll your eyes about something you saw. Don't make under the breath comments about maybe how messy something is. And don't even be cute and look at your buyer partner and make some weird face like, we've all been in messy units or seen units that have some weird stuff inside. And the last thing you want to do is to try to communicate that weirdness to your partner or other vendor, thinking nobody sees you, and then coming right around the corner as soon as you did that, eye roll, the tenant saw it. Just keep whatever it is you saw or are thinking in your own head. Another overall good piece of advice is to just not engage the tenant at all. Sometimes when you're in a unit, you see something that maybe creates a commonality between you and that tenant. Keep it to yourself. Especially don't stop talking about politics, race, religion, or any other hot topic that comes up. I also see that when you're inspecting 20, 40, 100, 200 units, you start to become more comfortable and you start getting more lazy. And the conversation between you as the buyer and your partner or vendors or even the seller themselves, you start talking about other deals you're buying, other deals you're working on, other deals you're financing. And the tenants hear those things and they're not stupid. They know now what's going on. As you begin to finish up inspecting a unit, make sure you turn off all the lights for any room or hallway that you've gone down. That just shows that you respect their living quarters and makes it a little bit easier on them. As you're leaving the unit, just thank the tenant for allowing you to come inside and take a look at the unit. Once you've exited and you have things you want to bring up to the broker or one of the seller's representatives, make sure you are clear away from the front door of the unit you just inspected. Everybody now these days, or many folks, have those little Ring doorbells that you can hear anything and everything you want. Okay, now we're going to talk about part 2, which is how to inspect units when the tenant is not home. Part 2 is going to be real short because for the most part, you're going to do the same exact thing as if the tenant was home. Other than the initial greeting of the tenant when you come in and the thank yous to the tenant when you leave, a lot of the same rules to part 1 apply in part 2. For instance, when you're in that unit where the tenant is not home, you are still not making any weird faces. You are not making any comments out loud. You're not rolling your eyes. You're not pointing to your friend and going, or anything like that. You're not commenting on the messiness out loud. You're not commenting on something you saw on the counter. You're not commenting on drugs or a bong you found on the floor. Why? Because tenants could easily have video cameras, tape recorders, or even live webcams watching you walk through their units. Tenants are human beings just like all of us, and you're coming into their personal space in order to look at the unit from a structural and mechanical standpoint to make sure it's something that meets your investment criteria. You want to show not only the utmost respect to the tenant and their unit themselves, but also to the seller and his staff so he doesn't have to deal with things that are unnecessary after the inspection. You want your inspections that day to be as uneventful as possible. Keep quiet, keep your head down, pay attention to your inspection sheets, and any comments or questions you have, just reserve those for when you're well outside the unit. And after the inspections are over, don't call the seller or their staff or any vendors that take care of the property directly unless you have approval from the listing broker or the sellers themselves. Remember, just because you may have spent a day with some of these folks doesn't give you the authority to begin communicating directly with them. Most sellers still want that broker to work the middle and have one line of communication between the two parties. Almost everything we covered in this video is to keep you as the buyer's relationship strong with the seller so that they are more apt to do another transaction with you because you were professional during the inspections. Remember, the easiest deal in the world is doing a second or third or fourth transaction between the same buyer and seller. I hope this video brought you some value, and if it did, please hit the like button right down below. Make sure you subscribe if you haven't already, and hit that little bell so that you're made aware of every video that comes out each week. See you on the next one.